And given all the leads that were not followed, and the fact that some of these white supremacist groups, white separatist groups, still exist to this day, and in the view of many of us, at least me, I believe that they got away with something. What does that say, perhaps, about moving forward? Has our government done a better job of trying to infiltrate some of these groups? Because frankly, when I was in Arkansas in the mid-'90s, they had no ability to monitor Alawam City whatsoever.
Right. Well, certain things have changed since 9/11. The most important change, and you can argue from a civil liberties point of view that it's not all good, is that the brakes that were put on the FBI to prevent them from doing intelligence work as opposed to pure criminal investigation, those brakes have been lifted. They were imposed in the Watergate era because of concern about the FBI spying on civil rights groups and on anti-war groups without justification. And those brakes, as I say, were lifted completely after 9/11. So the FBI has the opportunity to infiltrate groups. It has the opportunity to try and gather intelligence before attacks happen. There's a problem as far as domestic violence is concerned, which is, again, this is according to people who know, who work for the Homeland Security Committee of the House in Washington, who I've spoken to, that so many resources are put towards worrying about the threat from overseas groups that not enough resources may be devoted to the domestic threat. So that's certainly a concern. A secondary concern, certainly raised by civil rights groups, is that some of the cases that have come forward look an awful lot like the FBI not just rumbling plots, dismantling plots before they can come to fruition, but actually actively encouraging would-be radicals to do something violent and then arresting them when they move forward. And there's a question about whether that constitutes entrapment or not. The FBI vehemently denies it. Civil liberties groups vehemently accuse them of it. So it's a mixed bag. And then the other, the real question is about how the different rival agencies work together. The ATF, which got along horribly with the FBI in the Oklahoma City bombing investigation, they were withholding evidence from each other, they were lying to each other, they were at daggers drawn with each other, there were almost fights that broke out on the task force. The ATF used to be under Treasury, it's now under the Justice Department like the FBI. In theory, they now all work together. In practice, I've heard a lot of present and former FBI agents spitting bullets at the mention of the ATF. Things like the Fast and Furious scandal, which involved guns being allowed to go across the border to Mexico. One of those guns ended up killing a Border Patrol agent a couple of years ago. There are members of the FBI who blame the ATF squarely for pure incompetence over that. So there's a lot of mistrust still out there. It comes down in the end to individual agents. If you have a really good agent in charge, which is invariably an FBI agent, and if you have really competent ATF agents working on the ground and they recognize each other's skills, things can go very well. If there's any hint of mistrust or suspicion, it can really screw up investigations.
Andrew Gumbel is the author of Oklahoma City, What the Investigation Missed and Why It Still Matters. It is, folks, one of the most riveting and compelling books on homeland sort of terrorism that I have ever seen. And Andrew, you're a terrific journalist, and I appreciate how thorough you were with me and some of the other journalists who were in Arkansas and Oklahoma at the time. And again, to everybody who's out there, get the book. If you're at all intrigued about what happened in Boston and you're concerned about whether our government has the capacity to appropriately investigate these things and bring justice, read Oklahoma City, What the Investigation Missed and Why It Still Matters by Andrew Gumbel. Andrew, thanks for being part of the program.
Thank you.
Andrew Gumbel. Folks, Take Action News continues after this. Daniel Marins with an intriguing look at an important report about fiscal austerity that has now been debunked. The idea that we need to tighten our belts and that the European governments felt that way, well, everybody was wrong. Daniel Marins is going to explain why when Take Action News continues after this.